Hi there, my name is Danny Gibson, digital media producer at The Drum. And today we have Natasha Chehatia-Wardner, creative partner and founder of Bow and Arrow, and John Mathers, chairperson of the British Design Fund, who are co-chairs of the Drum Awards for Design 2021. They're going to have a fun chat about some of the trends and challenges that the industry should be talking about over the next year, the diverse panel of judges we have on board, the changes to the categories, as well as advice on what entrants can do with their entries to stand out. Over to you guys.
Hello there, I'm John. I'm delighted to be joined by Natasha. Natasha and I are the chairs for the Drum Design Awards this year. It's great because Natasha's going to be taking over the chair completely from next year. So we're doing a bit of a double act this year, which is going to be great fun. And it's going to be great because we've got an amazing new set of judges from around the world. We've got some fantastic new talent. We're going to look at some interesting new awards, and we've also, I think, going to have some great entries to judge as well. So looking forward to it. But we just wanted to have a little chat about some of the challenges that we've seen in the design industry in the last amazing, incredible year. And I was going to ask you, Natasha, I mean, obviously it's been a tough year for many industries, but how do you think design's coped, and what are the trends that you think are going to be the ones that we're going to see that really provide some of the solutions to some of the challenges that we've had?
Good question. Okay, I think for the industry, it's a tale of two opposing halves. We've seen individuals that are really suffering. A huge proportion of our industry is freelance, or they have a combination of jobs and revenue streams, which has meant sometimes they've fallen through the cracks for financial support, and it's been really tough. The flip side, I think, is people who have been busier than ever before. I challenge you to try and get a designer developer at the moment. It's almost impossible. The demand is so high. And then I think for design teams, we've seen mass adoption of collaborative tools that I don't think will go anywhere anytime soon. I think
Natasha, can I just ask you, where do you think, I mean, if we're struggling, and I get completely that designer developers are really tough to come by, who's snaffling them up? Where are they going? Is it just the design industry, or are we actually seeing designers going beyond the design industry as well?
Yeah, I think we're seeing designers go beyond the industry. In the last, say, 5 years, I've seen a trend of in-house agencies snapping up designer developers anyway. But I think now with this move towards digital, everybody needs them. So they're in demand across the board, not just in design.
So we know what degree we should have done back in the day, don't we?
Yeah, exactly. Although I don't think it existed when we were doing.
No, that's true. That's true. But computers didn't exist when I did a degree.
They only just existed when I did mine. Oh dear, we're showing our ages, aren't we?
Sorry, keep going.
So yeah, I think the tool thing is really interesting. The days of the static computer, the static server, and the static file, they're all in the background now. And what I have seen as well is the reappropriation of tools like Figma being used not just for their created intent, like just for interfaces, but for collaborative working in general. So I've seen it in remote design classes. I think it's really the future. And I think that point about companies getting designers on board, they've had to do that because they've had to get their digital offerings up to par. Mm. So many big organizations haven't done it already, and this has been the time where they really have had to buck up. I think the trend that we will then see is differentiation has to be next. It's not just getting your e-commerce up to sort of decent parity anymore, but it needs to be about innovating and creating cutting edge digital tools and services, not just your websites.
And I mean, Natasha, I know that Bow and Arrow is part of a bigger management consultancy makeup. Are you finding that the management consultancies are working in different ways as well, or is it the design element of it that is leading the way in terms of setting different patterns for the way that you work with clients?
I think it's quite symbiotic. I mean, one of the reasons we did it in the first place was because we needed access to technology. And that was a really big thing for us, because if you don't have that, you can only go so far. In terms of the way creative agencies and consultancies work, I think we work at a pace that is really, really interesting as well. And we are, I would say, as an industry, slightly less risk averse. So we work in a very entrepreneurial, quick manner. And I think the symbiosis of both of those things is really interesting.
I mean, I think it's been fascinating just in the agencies I know of about how different agencies have adapted to working remotely. I mean, some I think have embraced it and actually are doing better now than they were before.
Yeah.
Some have really struggled. Is that your experience as well?
It's exactly my experiences. I was talking to someone outside of the design industry, but sort of creative industries in general. And it's interesting because I think productivity's really gone up, because design agencies and creative agencies generally have open plan, hugely fun, but really noisy offices.
Yeah.
And it can be really distracting. And actually now we can concentrate on doing the work during work and ultimately becoming more productive, which is quite ironic. But I have heard of creative agencies where people don't speak for weeks, or they don't feel very looked after. And I think this remote working has really highlighted the cracks in culture that some agencies have. And I really believe that culture is now more important than ever. I argue it's the key to winning new business and going from just surviving to really thriving in remote working. And I was reading about this the other day, and Brian Chesky said, from Airbnb, said about 10 years ago, if you break the culture, you break the machine that creates your products. And we're all using the same tools, so ostensibly we're on a level playing field. But I think it takes cultural effort and desire and dedication, and I mean, dare I say it, passion and love to make it work, because there's a real difference between good and bad. I've been to some really, really terrible Zoom parties, and you see the creative people rolling their eyes because there's a DJ playing to an empty room, and it's quite painful. And then I've seen some insanely creative Zoom parties that have rivaled in-person parties. I'm really serious. They've been absolutely brilliant. And then we were in a New Year kickoff at Bow and Arrow where they used this new tool called Gather. It's gather.town, which is a huge success. They recreated our Soho offices digitally and created different rooms, and it was brilliant. And we're doing different things every week, from virtual self-care January bingo to values-driven February. I could go on about this for a really long time, so we can talk about it another time. But I really think that those remote cultural bonds to help glue a team together emotionally will be the success in the future. And the ones that are failing in their culture now, I think they'll fail with their creative product too.
But do you think, I mean, it's an interesting, you and I were talking about this earlier. Do you think this is just a continuation of what was already happening, or do you think this is something new? I mean, do you think that the agencies, the cultures, the organizations that are naturally good at that, have leaders that do that really well, will continue to do it, and the ones that haven't perhaps have been really showed up? I mean, I love the fact, I mean, you've probably read about it, the chairman of KPMG in the UK, who on a town hall meeting with his senior consultants told them to stop moaning and get on with it. Thankfully, he's gone. He's brilliant. Bit like that Olympic committee member who said that he thought that women talk too much in meetings. Thankfully, he's gone as well. But I mean, you can't escape. If you get things wrong and you show a bad example, the days when you could hide that are long gone, thank goodness, and you will be found out.
Yep, thank goodness. I think that's a really, really good thing. And yes, you could get away with papering over the cracks before, and now everyone is exposed, and you need to genuinely be good, not just say that you are. Saying that, it's not easy. It is a challenge. I think it's a challenge for everybody, but I hope that leaders are seeing how important it is.
So back to the design industry. What do you think? What do we think that some of the big challenges are going to be this year? I mean, as we hopefully come out of lockdown and things return to a degree of normality, I'm sure things will never be quite the same again. What do you think the adjusting challenges are going to be? It's going to be fascinating, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I think for organizations, I think it will be not moving fast enough. Slow decision making, or the C-suite, like you just said, being disconnected from their workforce or disconnected from their customers. I think the answer is, again, once everyone's got to parity, people need to invest in growth. Not just focusing on business as usual, but looking to the new. And I think creativity and innovation is a huge part of that. So hopefully people will realize that. I think for brands, it's a similar danger. I think it's that lack of connection and that lack of meaning for brands in customers' eyes across the whole brand experience, right? You can't just silo, okay, I'm going to look at my logo. You have to look at the whole piece now. And brands, I think, need to truly move towards standing for something more. People are increasingly seeking action and proactivity and meaning. They want to see brands not just talk, but do something. Yeah. And I think that means purpose. I think it means doing good, genuinely and measurably helping people in the planet beyond just making profit. I know it sounds like a nice to have, but I think that increasingly that's what customers want.
I think you're right. So it's been, you and I have had a great fun this year selecting the judges, haven't we? And we'll come on to the awards in a minute, but I just wanted to talk about the sort of diversity that we've, I hope, very successfully brought into the mix of judges this year. Because when I was chief executive of the Design Council, we did the Design Economy report, and it was pretty frightening, actually, the lack of diversity that we saw in the design industry, the poor representation of women, poor representation of BAME community. And that may still be an issue, but what we're trying to do at least is to address that in the criteria that we've got for the judges that we choose. And do you want to tell us about some of the changes that we've been making?
Yeah, I think, like you said, from an industry point of view, it's crucial. For us, it wasn't a choice, right? It was a mandatory. Yeah, I had a look at that report. It's actually a pity I couldn't find any other reports since then on the industry. But the amount of BAME seniors in the industry was shockingly low, and in terms of gender, we're also really behind. The fact that I pulled out actually is 78% of our workforce is male. 63% of design students are female. So there's something really going wrong there. And only 17% of design leaders are female. And obviously the world has become truly global as well. So reflecting BAME talent in the judges, male-female split, and location was really, really important. And we had to make the changes not just to reflect the sector, but I think to reflect what the future should be, not necessarily what it is. We weren't aiming for perfection. I don't think you ever can do, but we wanted to do something. And I think in the same way as diversifying organization, it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do for business. And I think that business's diversity will reflect the end customer better and create more creative solutions and products. And equally, a more diverse jury will, I think, create some more debate, different opinions, and more interesting outcomes, which I think is crucial. Yeah. So we need to represent people, not just the establishment.
Sure. So it's going to be really interesting, isn't it? Because this year we've got a very different mix and makeup of judges. So I think last year we were about 10 male, 7 female. This year I'm in the minority this year. It's 7 male and 13 female. We've got a really interesting race ethnicity mix. We've got, last year we were 100% UK judges. This year, I think it's about 65% when we got people from the US, 15% from the US, 20% from Asia Pacific. So it's going to be a really diverse mix. It's going to be it probably needs us two as judges, Natasha, to keep it all in order. So what do you think is going to, the sort of, the dynamics that are going to be at play when we sit round, and it's probably going to be not a table, is it? It's probably going to be a blinking Zoom conversation. But when we sit around and talk about things, what do you think some of the things that will come out will be?
Well, actually, we've also got a big diversity in where these judges are coming from as well. Yeah. So we've got people that have come from motion backgrounds, we've got people in placemaking, we've got people in big network agencies, we've got entrepreneurs, and we've got people with illustration backgrounds. So I really think the opinions potentially won't be as unified as they have been in the past, but I think that's no bad thing. I think diversity in general is about provoking new thought and new opinions and new ways to look at things. And so I think that's what will happen. I'm sure there'll be debate. I'm sure there won't be as much unity in decision making, but I'm good with that. I'm looking forward to some interesting conversation and perspectives, especially culturally. You know, we've had everyone come from the UK for a long time. So understanding what is important to other markets, for example, customers in different geographies, will be really interesting to me.
Yeah. I loved what you were talking about earlier about purpose and how people's views of design have changed. And I mean, just speaking personally, I feel exactly the same. My big thing in the last couple of years has been this whole healthy aging by design. It's about how we can use design to address the opportunities as well as the challenges in an older population. And that's one of the big challenges that we're going to face in society. And it's been really interesting because it's been an area that hasn't really particularly engaged the design community in the past, but I think is starting to engage them in the future. So I'd love to hear about what, and you've initiated a lot of the changes in the awards that we're giving this year, the categories that we're looking at.
We put the more, shall I say, traditional categories, we've put them in buckets. They still exist, but those buckets are communicate, experience, craft, move. They feel more active. And I think the important thing is that design is not becoming about the medium, but what we create for clients in terms of value. It's not about the poster as a format, but about what that poster means and how effective it is. So I think, we're seeing that in the projects that we get. They're less and less starting with the definition of the end format, but the impact that we need to create for our clients. So I think that's really important. And we didn't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Those categories are still relevant and important to the industry, but we wanted to reimagine some of the other things. So in terms of the new additions, I think the thing I'm really passionate about is the conscious design bucket that we've created. And it is an acknowledgement about the fact that, design is not staying still. And when design is at its best, it can change ideas and perception and even circumstances. It's a really, really powerful role that design can play in society. So this is about really celebrating that. So the categories within conscious design include public health by design. That's obviously really relevant right now, but I hope it will be into the future as well. Design for good we've had before, but it sat on its own and it felt like a bit of a lone wolf. Effective aging by design. Yeah, I'll be interested to see what happens there. And Europe, Asia, America, and the UK, how we're looking at that. Yeah. And then resourceful design. This is one I'm really passionate about, actually. A recognition and celebration of design, not just as the outcome, but looking at material that's saved, or low or no waste, or low impact, even efficiencies. I think it will be really interesting to see what stories unfold on that one and the innovative ways designers have got around problems to create solutions that are better for the environment. But I think that's the point. Designers can apply their thinking and their creativity to so many problems beyond just that format. and we can look into supply chain, we can look into commercials, we can look into all of that stuff, and we can use creative thinking to affect it. So I'll be excited to see what happens.
Well, me too. I can't wait, actually. It's interesting, though, that at its heart, and this is a nod back to Glenn Tutzel, who unfortunately is no longer with us, but Glenn's mantra was great ideas, beautifully crafted, and with real impact. And to many ways, that's still the case today, isn't it? That the fundamentals of creativity have not changed, but the way and the context in which we see it and see creativity is starting to change. And I think that's being reflected, I think, in the categories and the judges that we got for this year. So it's good. So anything else you wanted to say before we probably have to duck out now? We've probably given people long enough to think, listen to us. So.
Well, I'd love to get feedback on this. You know, we've tried some new things. You know, we've broadened the scope in terms of jury and the categories. I'd love to have new ideas come to us as well. We don't assume that we know everything about the industry. So any feedback that we can get, any input, very, very welcome.
No. Well, it's been great chatting, actually. We're trying to do this where the judges we've had over the years, we build up a nice community so that we can have these sorts of conversations and we can follow up. And the idea, I think, is, Natasha, that we're going to talk to some of the other judges and have similar sort of sessions where we can have rounded conversations about what's going on in different parts of the world. So that'll be really good. And I think, from my perspective, we're really looking for some great ideas this year. I think you'll have heard from us the different sort of judging and judges that we have, and we really are looking for a diversity of ideas, left field as well as down the middle, and don't be afraid, bring it on. We really want to see some of the best stuff that's out there. So I think it's been a great session. Thank you very much. Make sure, everybody, that you go to the awards website. It's the drumdesignawards.com. I will hope to see lots of great ideas. And Natasha, thank you very much. It's been great talking as always. So
looking
goodbye.
forward to it. Bye.
All right, bye.